Krishna Govinda Janardana Achyuta Paramananda Jaya Rama Krishna Govinda Janardana Achyuta Paramananda Achyuta Paramananda Nityananda Mukunda Achyuta Paramananda Nityananda Mukunda Jaya Rama Krishna Govinda Janardana Achyuta Paramananda Jaya Rama Krishna Govinda Janardana Achyuta Paramananda Kamsa Kamsa Kaliyanathan Devaki Kanaya Sarasharanam Kamsa Kamsa Kaliyanathan Devaki Kanaya Sarasharanam Jaya Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram Jaya Ram Krishna Govinda Janardana Achyuta Paramananda Jaya Ram Krishna Govinda Janardana Achyuta Paramananda Ayodhyavasi Ram Dasharatha Nandana Ram Ayodhyavasi Ram Dasharatha Nandana Ram Patita Pavana Janaki Sita Mohana Ram Patita Pavana Janaki Sita Mohana Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram Jaya Ram Krishna Govinda Janardana Achyuta Paramananda Jaya Rama Krishna Govinda Janardana Achyuta Paramananda Ram 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 Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram Ram Jaya Ram Ram Jaya Ram Godhan Shamnath Mori Akhiya Pyasi Re Darshan Godhan Shamnath Mori Akhiya Pyasi Re Darshan Godhan Shamnath मंदिर की ज्योत जगा दो मन मंदिर की ज्योत जगा दो घट घट वासी घट घट वासी दर्शन दो घन श्याम नाथ मुनि क्या प्यासी दर्शन दो घन श्याम मंदिर मंदिर मूरत तेरी, फिर बिना देखे सूरत तेरी। मंदिर मंदिर मूरत तेरी, फिर बिना देखे सूरत तेरी। युग बीते ना आए मिलन की, युग बीते ना आए मिलन की। पूर्णमासी रे, हे पूर्णमासी रे। दर्शन दो घन श्याम नाथ मोरे, अखियाँ प्यासी रे। दर्शन दो घन श्याम, और दया का जब तू खोले, पंचम सुर में दुर्गा बोले। और दया का जब तू खोले, पंचम सुर में दुर्गा बोले। अंधा देखे लंगड़ा चलकर, अंधा देखे लंगड़ा चलकर, पहुँचे काशी रे, पहुँचे काशी रे। दर्शन दो घन श्याम नाथ मोरे, अखियाँ प्यासी रे। दर्शन दो घन श्याम, अरबी कर प्यास बुझाऊं, नैनन को कैसे समझाऊं। पानी पीकर प्यास बुझाऊं, नैनन को कैसे समझाऊं। आँख में चोली छोड़ दो अब तू, आँख में चोली छोड़ दो अब तू। मन के वासी रे, मन के वासी रे। दर्शन दो घन श्याम नाथ मोरे, अखियाँ प्यासी रे। दर्शन दो घन श्याम नाथ मोरे, अखियाँ प्यासी रे। दर्शन दो घन श्याम। ॐ सहनौ भवतु, सहनौ भुनक्तु, सह वीर्यं करवावहै, तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। शांति शांति शांति। chant Bhagavad Gita chapter 3 verses 33 to 43, please. Bhagavad Gita chanting verses 33 to 43 of chapter 3. Sadrisham cheshtate swasyaha prakrutiर्ज्ञानवानपि प्रकृतिं यान्ति भूतानि निग्रहः किं करिष्यति इन्द्रियस्येन्द्रियस्यार्थे रागद्वेषौ व्यवस्थितौ तयोर्नवशमागच्छेत् तौ ह्यस्य परिपन्थिनौ श्रेयान् स्वधर्मो विगुणः परधर्मो भयावहः परधर्मो स्वनुष्ठितात् स्वधर्मो निधनं श्रेयः परधर्मो भयावहः अर्जुन उवाच अथ केन प्रयुक्तोऽयम् पापं चरति पूरुषः अनिच्छन्नपि वार्ष्णेय बलादिव नियोजितः श्रीभगवानुवाच काम एषः क्रोध एषः रजोगुणसमुद्भवः महाशनो महापाप्मा विध्येनमिह वैरिणम् धूमेनाव्रियते वह्निः यथादर्शो मलेन च यथोल्बेनावृतो गर्भः तथा तेनेदमावृतम् आवृतं ज्ञानमेतेन ज्ञानिनो नित्यवैरिणा कामरूपेण कौन्तेय दुष्पूरेणानलेन च इन्द्रियाणि मनोबुद्धिः अस्याधिष्ठानमुच्यते एतैर्मोहयत्येषः ज्ञानमावृत्य देहिनम् तस्मात् त्वमिन्द्रियाण्यादौ नियम्य भरतर्षभ पाप्मानं प्रजहीह्येनं ज्ञानविज्ञाननाशनम् इन्द्रियाणि पराण्याहुः इन्द्रियेभ्यः परं मनः मनसस्तु परा बुद्धिः यो बुद्धे परतस्तु सः एवं बुद्धे परं बुद्ध्वा संस्तभ्यात्मानमात्मना जहि शत्रुं महाबाहो कामरूपं दुरासदम्. We have been studying the chapter 3 Karma Yoga. In the chapter, the topic, the previous class we have been studying is the way to overcome the impediments in the path of Karma Yoga or path to reach the self. What are the obstacles and how to overcome is the topic which is been studied in the previous class, and it's continued from the verse 41. We have been covered a little bit, and we will study the 41, a quick recap as well. The chanting of the mantra 41. Tasmat swamindriyanyadau niyamya bharatarshava papmanam prajahihyenam jnana vijnana nashanam tasmat tvamindriyanyadau niyamya bharatarshava papmanam prajahihyenam Jnana Vijnana Nashanam. Having given the crystal clear logic and reason, the impediments, the obstructions in this mantra, the advice given by Lord Krishna by conclusion. So here he says tasmat. Tasmat is the technical word of mathematical derivation and conclusion. Therefore, we always use therefore, a word in mathematics where we derive an answer, and finally in the answer we will say therefore x is equal to so much. Similarly here the same system followed by Lord Krishna here. Therefore, O Bharata Rishabha, bull among the Bharatas, controlling first the senses, indeed kill this sinful destroyer of knowledge and wisdom. So he covered that this means the previous class, previous topic, he covered that the Nitya Vairinam is the human being is constantly having battle with the desire. So the desire is the sinner, desire is the killer in every human being. Human being minus desire is equal to God. God plus desire is equal to you and me, human beings. Therefore, here the desire is told by Nitya Vairina. So, you got to control the desire gradually by first controlling your senses, your Indriya Nigraha, sense control. So, indeed, once you get the powerful control of the senses, indeed, kill this sinful destroyer. You can eliminate the destroyer, which is the desire of which destroying at this moment the knowledge and wisdom of every human being. So, Tasmat, therefore, Krishna concludes his sermon, his teaching on desire. So, he is coming to crystal clear conclusion. Therefore, Arjuna, control your senses. Today, nobody having any clue about how they are getting destroyed by their own senses. Senses dictate terms to them. They are unable to control their senses. So, control your senses and kill your desires. They are sinful. They are very, very agitating, disturbing. The sin means agitations, mental agitations produced by unfulfilled desires, sinful destroyer. So these desires destroy your knowledge and wisdom. Krishna addresses Arjuna as Bharata Rishabha, which literally means bull among the Bharatas. Means Hindus worship the bull and cow for the main reason of it stands on the great principle, a maxim, fundamental formula it lives, the great sacrifice. The principle of sacrifice, bull represents by its living example. Its life is based on giving. Bull never takes, it always giving, giving, giving. So, based on giving rather than taking, it renders a service and sacrifice to humanity. The bull and cow gives everything to humanity. It toils, works hard day and morning to night, and gives the humanity a greatest maximum work, minimum profit. It lives on the principle. Whereas human being tends to live a reverse formula, minimum work, maximum profit. So Arjuna, known for the sacrificial work he has done, rendered to the countrymen, to his own fellowmen, deserves the title of bull among the Bharatas. So he is sacrificial to his country. He is never bothered about his personal benefits when he is functioning for the obligatory duties for the welfare of the country. That's why Arjuna was given such a title called Bharata Rishabha, bull among the Bharatas. Arjuna is known. So the cow and bull are sacred in the country because of they stand on the great principle of sacrifice. They give everything in return. They take only a grass which is neglected, which they don't ask. You just feed them. But they help you, give everything morning to night. They work hard in the field and the cultivation, and they, with the plowing and with the use of the wholesome milk, bull and cow, they provide all the benefits for humanity, where they produce grains and where they become prosperous. So, bull and cow lives on the principle of maximum work, minimum profit. They don't ask in return anything. Similarly, a person of high caliber, a person of wisdom, a person of grown, mature, a developed, well-developed individual, he lives on the principle of maximum service, minimum profit, maximum work, minimum profit. But ordinary people, the vast majority of people, live on the principle of minimum work, maximum profit. This is where they get into all sorts of troubles and sufferings. Arjuna stands on the bull among the Bharatas because known for sacrificial work he has rendered for his countrymen, deserves the title Bharata Rishabha, as his lifestyle followed the above principle of which stand by the bull, maximum work, minimum profit. He lived continuously in service and sacrifice for the welfare of the country. Therefore, Lord Krishna lovingly addresses him with a proper noun, Bharata Rishabha, bull among the Bharatas, which he really deserves. This verse advises controlling the senses first. If anybody in the world who doesn't have a control over senses is unfit for spiritual path, not only that, he is unfit for life also. He will destroy himself. So sense control doesn't mean sense denial. It is nothing to do with sense participation, disconnection. Vast majority of people do not understand the fundamental understanding of how to deal with the senses and sense objects. There are two people who wrongly utilize, abuse, misuse the senses. One class of people, they go all out and indulge in the senses and destroy themselves and getting into sorrow and suffering. The few minority of these people who misunderstand the spirituality, they disconnect the senses physically, contacting sense objects, deny themselves and get mentally frustrated, suppressed, repressed, the desires inside, and hypocritical. They also become sinful and they destroy themselves. So this is not the way to deal with the senses. Here is the great advice given. Sense control is not sense denial. So before emotions and thoughts you tackle, you must control your senses. Since physical senses are gross compared to the emotions and the mind and thoughts at the intellectual level, one can control the senses more easily if we get educated on that. You employ the more subtle mind and intellect to control the senses. Uncontrolled senses agitate your mind. When your mind is agitated, your intellect ceases to function, cannot think. Loss of intellect places you in a dangerously vulnerable to all sorts of attacks by the world. Therefore, you must first control your senses. Why one must control the senses? If you do not control the senses, sensual indulge, it will agitate your mind, because the uncontrollable senses will disturb the mind. Desire keeps mounting and you don't get satisfaction. The uncontrollable, unfulfilled desires of the mind in the senses indulgence leads to mental disturbances. When the mind is agitated, mind is disturbed, then the intellect ceases to function. And when the intellect cannot think, you can't act properly. When you cannot act properly, you destroy yourself, you lead to failure, you can't concentrate on the job, then the problem and suffering is the result. Therefore, you must exercise your intellect first to control the body's senses using the intellect. So senses do not dictate terms to you. You should call the shots. You should control the senses. By intellectual re-evaluation and thinking differently from a totally different angle, is you rip open each sense object which is alluring you, enticing you, and you dissect the sense object in various reasoning, various analysis, you cut open and you view the same object from totally different angle by intellectual re-evaluation. This is what the development of intellect, so that you control the senses. When the senses come under control, then your mind becomes peaceful, then your intellect becomes sharp, and you can concentrate on your present action, and you get the consummate results and success. Therefore, this verse advises to controlling the senses first, before the emotions. Before you get onto the mind control, you must control the senses first, and thoughts control. Since physical senses are gross, because the body is made up of eyes, ears, nose, tongue and skin, sense organs of perception, and hands, legs, organ of speech, organ of generation, organ of evacuation. These are the karmendriyas. So physical body is made up of jnanendriyas and karmendriyas. So sense organs of perception, sense organs of action. So both put together is the physical body. Therefore, there is a constant pressure of the senses rushing to sense objects. There is a pull, there is a push from within, from the senses, and equally so there is a pull from the world, which is made up of attractions of sense objects. Eyes run after sights, seeing, ears for sounds, pleasant sounds, nose for fragrance, pleasant smell, the tongue for pleasant taste, and skin for pleasant touch. These are all the 5 sense organs rushing towards all the time sense objects, and the objects pull the senses. There is a push from within and there is a pull from external world. In this pressure of the push and the pull, it is very difficult for a general personality, common man, without having powerful intellect, to govern the senses. You got to extricate yourself from these sense objects temporarily until you gain the knowledge and understanding. What is the understanding? The objects or beings do not have, cannot provide, and do not have inherently. There is a pleasure in them. The pleasure, the joy you are experiencing upon contacting sense object is nothing but your own cessation of your desire. There is no object, there is no being which provides happiness, joy, pleasure. The Vedanta teaches. So with the knowledge and understanding, you grow above these sense indulgences. You are not asked to deny the senses, nor physically disconnect the senses, nor indulge the senses. You've got to understand the role of the senses, and you grow above them by maturity, by understanding how the objects by themselves do not have inherently pleasure or joy. A person picks up a cigarette and smokes, he claims tremendous pleasure in it. Another person detests smoke, he hates smoke, he rejects smoke. Cigarette being the same produces pleasure to one, pain to another. Similarly, a person goes to the lawyer to divorce his wife. Another person another person wants the same lady. The lady is the same. One person wants to divorce. He speaks to the lawyer, says that I cannot stand this lady. Please get me out of her by giving divorce. He approaches the lawyer. The lawyer says it takes 6 months. For how much it costs? 10,000. So he asks for double the amount and make it 3 months. I am ready to pay. I want to get rid of her as soon as possible. Whereas another person desperately waiting in the same courtroom, looking for that lady. So a person, lady being the same, produces joy to one, ecstasy to one, agony to one. The cigarette being the same produces pain to one, pleasure to one. The question arises, it is subjected to analysis. If there is a pleasure or a joy in the object, it should give the pleasure, joy to everyone who contacts the object or being. But the people who are getting reacted differently, one gets pleasure, another one gets pain, indicates that there is no pleasure or pain or joy or sorrow in the object or in the being. It is how you contact it. It is within you. It is how you relate to that object or being is the advice. Once you understand there is no pleasure or joy in the object, it is the way you relate to it. It is your internal phenomena. Therefore, Vedanta says that examine closely each sense object you are craving for, and you rip open and analyze, then the craving automatically subsides by application of your intellectual penetration on the object or being and which you claim to be enjoying. Therefore, the sense control is established through powerful intellect. Then onwards, you may perhaps you may enjoy the sense in the sense objects. You may, participate in sensual pleasures, but you are the boss. You call the shots. You are govern them. You are not slave. You are the master. That is what advised by Lord Krishna. Once you have that position of controlling the senses, then the mind is peaceful, because if you do not have control over senses, mind gets agitated because unfulfilled, the desire keeps mounting and there is a dissatisfaction at the sense contact. You don't get pleasure as much as the desire. Therefore, mind gets disturbed, and agitated mind cannot provide proper thinking of the intellect, enable the intellect to think properly and act properly. Therefore, your concentration is impaired, disturbed. When you cannot concentrate on the present job, present action, you will be failure. You can't exceed, you can't get success in any job or any field of endeavor. So people complain about failure because of intellect is not available at that moment of action, because mind is disturbed. A disturbed mind is the cause, agitated mind is the cause for success or failure, because of the uncontrollable senses indulgence. Therefore, desire is sinful in the sense that it creates mental agitations. Why desire has to be considered as a sinner? Because it is that which causes disturbances. You ask anybody, why are you worried? Why are you anxious? Why are you disturbed? Why are you experiencing stress and strain? They immediately tell you it is because I have desire and expectations. So the desire is the cause for agitations. So one has to control the senses, thereby control the desire. Therefore, if you do not control, it ruins your peace of mind. Your mind is completely agitated because of the uncontrollable desire of the senses. It also destroys your knowledge and wisdom. Because of you gain the knowledge and wisdom based on your control of your body and mind. If your uncontrollable desire will never help you to apply existing knowledge. It's like a person is writing exam. He can access his memory only his mind is calm and pleasant, peaceful. When the mind is highly disturbed, his intellect cannot access the memory and he cannot recall the answers what he studied and he cannot put it in paper. Therefore, he blunders, commits mistakes in the exam and he fails in the exam. So the fundamental requirement for any job to be successful, your mind must be peaceful. Your mind must be calm and composed. So desire is sinful in the sense that it creates mental agitations. It ruins your peace of mind. It also destroys your knowledge and wisdom. You got a knowledge, but knowledge is obstructed by the desires. So the knowledge and wisdom cannot be translated into action because of tremendous uncontrollable desire. So when possessed with the desires, and beset with mental agitations, when you are obsessed with the desires of an object or being, and when you are mentally beset with the agitations, you lose access to your whatever theoretical knowledge you have. You can't remember what you already have. You can't access your information in memory, what you stored in your mind, because your disturbances will not enable you to access that through intellect. Your mental agitations, you lose access to whatever theoretical knowledge you have gained, and any practical wisdom you have acquired through it. Even though you have practical wisdom, you cannot translate into action because of your mental disturbances at the time of acting, because of mind is worried and anxiety because of the desires. So here is concluding by Lord Krishna powerfully that desire is the sinful destroyer. Therefore, Bharata Rishabha, when he is talking about Bharata Rishabha, bull among the Bharatas, to Arjuna means every human being is capable of, designed to be, qualified to be able to control and bring his life into his hands by bringing control of his senses and his mind under control by application of his intellect on the mind's senses and desires. So just as you got to control your vehicle while you are driving a vehicle in the highway, if you are not having control over your vehicle while you are traveling from a place to a destination, a goal which you fixed. When the vehicle is not in your control, you meet with an accident and you will destroy yourself. Similarly, friends, you are made up of the physical body, the senses, and the mind. These are the equipments you are made up of, provided with intellect, the governing equipment. If this body and senses not under your control of your intellect, the senses disturb the mind, and when the mind gets agitated, you cannot think properly, your intellect ceases to function, you can't act properly, you destroy yourself, is the greatest advice given by Lord Krishna. So desire is your greatest enemy. Therefore, Krishna concludes his sermon on desire. Arjuna, oh Bhartarashava, control your senses first and kill the desires of your mind. That is the sinner, that is sinful, that disturbs you. They destroy whatever knowledge you have. People are knowledgeable. The people are brilliant. There is intelligent people all over the world. But why they commit blunders after blunders? Why they lead a wrong life, sinful life, an unrighteous life? Because of the selfishness and desire. The desire is the culprit which guides them to wrong channels and ruin their lives. First it ruins their peace of mind and ultimately ruins their life as well. Therefore Krishna advises Arjuna as Bharatarashava, a bull among the Bharatas, which literally means the great sacrificer of worshipping. So it lives on the principle of maximum work, minimum profit. You must focus on service and sacrifice, execute maximum work in your field without looking for personal benefit or profit. Then your existing desires will be exhausted in the name of obligatory duties for the welfare of the world. Then mind gets calm and composed, and your intellect is sharp, and you will be able to achieve success and progress. That's what the Arjuna is qualified for, the knowledge and wisdom. The bull, he followed the maxim. So his lifestyle, he deserves the title of Bharatarashava as the lifestyle followed by among the maximum work, minimum profit. This verse advises controlling the senses first. So before starting anything, question should be put onto you oneself. Do I have a control of my own senses, sense organs? Eyes constantly rush to sightseeing. How much control I have over the sightseeing, constantly using the eyes? Can I understand what is the indulgence in the eyes? Similarly, overstraining. Similarly, ears. Do I have control over ears, using constantly in the music or some kind of sounds? Similarly, you could be slave to sights, you could be slave to sounds, you could be slave to smell. You cannot stand obnoxious smell because you are attached to, slave to pleasant smell. So eyes, ears, nose, tongue. The tongue is the destroyer, constantly indulging in the variety of tasty food. In the name of food, you destroy the body. People prefer junk food, bad food, the food which harms the physical health. Nobody likes the right type of food, the saltless, spiceless, the oilless, the natural food nobody likes. Everybody likes, because of senses controlling, they likes oily food, the tasty food, the spicy food, the salty food, that all the food which destroys your health. This is the weakness of sense control lacking. The moment you do not have sense control, you lose the game of life. You suffer, you ultimately ruin your health and destroy yourself is the advice given. So therefore, this verse advises control the senses first before controlling anything higher, which is the mind. The mind is full of emotions, feelings. The mind has a positive feelings and negative feelings. Positive feelings are the love, happiness, kindness, compassion, sympathy, charity. These are all the positive emotions. Whereas the negative emotions are the jealousy, greed, lust, envy, arrogance, fear. They are the negative emotions. All put together is your mind. When the mind entertains any emotion, you become emotional and you lose the control over emotion, you destroy yourself again. Therefore, to control the emotions, you must first control the senses. And before going to the mind, emotions, and then thoughts. Intellect entertains various thoughts. Thoughts could be pertaining to the various subjects in the world. It could be engineering or medicine or politics or economics or space or foreign affairs or international affairs or any kind of caste or religion or variety thoughts and ideas and ideologies is the nature of the intellect. But a person of wisdom, a person of highly developed, has a control over the thoughts and ideas, which can be exercised only when you have controlled the senses first. So therefore, before attempting to control over emotions and thoughts, you must first control the senses, since physical senses are the gross, the base, compared to the emotions of the mind and the thoughts of the intellect. The one can control them more easily because the senses comes first. You employ the more subtle mind and intellect to control the senses. Uncontrollable senses, uncontrollable desires in this level of senses disturb, agitate your mind, thereby your mind gets disturbed and then the intellect loses the concentration. You can't focus. Intellect cannot think. When the mind is disturbed, the loss of intellect places you in a dangerously vulnerable position, susceptible position to get damaged. Therefore, you must first control the senses. Any disturbed person cannot think properly and cannot act properly, and whatever decision he takes wrongly, concludes wrongly, and the consequences are deadly. Therefore, desire is a sinful in the sense that it causes mental agitation. Any desire, uncontrollable desire, whether it's good or bad, doesn't matter what desire you have to be clear about understanding that desire is the sinful nature and it has got the capacity to disturb your mind, that creates mental agitations and it ruins the whatever peace the mind has. The peace of mind is gone. It destroys not only the peace, it destroys the knowledge and wisdom you have. When possessed with desires and beset with mental agitations, you lose your access, you lose your availability of knowledge, you lose the theoretical knowledge, whatever you have, and practical wisdom you have gained also will be lost. Therefore, the advice given is control the senses. This is the first step for growth, for development, for success in any field. Not only for success in spiritual path, even in the worldly success in whatever you are looking for. As not only that you wanted to reach the enlightenment, the ultimate state of perfection, also the same procedure of controlling the senses first. So we'll get on to the mantra 42. Indriyani paranyahu indriyasyebhya param manaha manasastu para buddhi yo buddhe paratastu saha indriyani paranyahu indriyebhya param manaha parasastu para buddhi yo buddhe paratastu saha. The senses are said to be great. The verse translation. The senses are said to be great. Greater than the senses is the mind. Hierarchy is defined. Greater than the mind is the intellect. And that which is greater than the intellect is He, the Supreme Self, the Atman. Here is the clear definition of the hierarchy. Vast majority of human beings, if not all, most of them do not know the hierarchy. What is one above the other? It's like in any organization, the lowest cadre is the labor, then is the manager, or before that there is a clerks. Above clerks, the manager. Above the manager is the director or CEO of the company. And then the owner, ultimately the person who owns it. Similarly, friends, there are 4 categories of human personality made up of. The first lowest one is the physical body, which half all human beings, most of them caught up, labor class category. The physical body. Above the physical body means senses, indriyas. Above the physical body is the mind, the feelings and emotions, the realm of the heart. Above the mind is the intellect, the thinking equipment, the reason, the decision making, the judgment. And above the intellect is the Atman, the spirit, the supreme God, who owns everything, who is everything, who is everywhere. It's like electricity in everyone, every electrical equipment. Similarly, the God is the ultimate in the hierarchy. So the Supreme Self, the Atman in Sanskrit, God in English, the Spirit. So the senses are said to be great, no doubt. The senses are great. Greater than the senses is the mind. And the mind, and then greater than the mind is the intellect, and intellect greater than that is the Supreme Self. So the verse appears in Kathopanishad. It is the verse number 42, this what we currently engaged in study is that which appears in Upanishads. Verbatim, put it here. Kathopanishad in section 2, section 3, pardon. Verses 10 and 11. And section 4, verses 7 and 8. It's repeated in 2 times in the Upanishad itself. The senses are said to be powerful. Today, every human being is slave to senses. Senses dictate terms to human beings today. The senses are said to be powerful. The mind is more powerful than the senses. And more than the powerful mind is the intellect, more powerful than the mind. And the most powerful of all is the Supreme God, the Self. In this hierarchy, the more powerful controls the less powerful. So, the hierarchy is defined based on the 2 factors, 2 testing criteria. Who is above what? Who controls what? The hierarchy, who is above, is defined as the 2 tests you must provide. One is the pervasiveness, second one is control. If you carefully analyze, the more pervasive, and second test is control. If you take the senses and the mind, it is just as you can take the body itself. What is more controlling over the other is that the heart or legs. If you carefully analyze legs, if the legs are chopped off, the heart is there, the body health is still intact. So the heart pumps the blood and circulation. The heart fails, the person dies instantly. Whereas if a person is handicapped, is still alive. So similarly, the heart is above the legs. There is a hierarchy in the body parts as well inside. You have legs, you have hands, and you have body organs one by one. What is hierarchy also can be precisely defined. Similarly, there is a definition at the level of the body and the mind. So the senses are gross, the mind is subtle, the subtlety, because wherever the sense organs are there, the mind also there. That's why it is called all pervasive. Wherever the body is there, mind is there. You go to the toe to the top of the head. If anything happens, the mind reacts. You feel pain. You feel disturbed because of the mind is present wherever the body is present. But the body cannot access where the mind goes. Suppose mind gone to your friend's house, your relative's house. The body cannot travel. Therefore, mind has the capacity to travel beyond the body. It is not only covering the body, it goes beyond the body. Therefore, it is all pervasive. It is more than the body, beyond the body. At the same time, body cannot control the mind. Body can influence the mind. Senses can influence, but senses cannot control the mind. Just as the seed produces the tree, mango seed produces the mango tree. Quality mango tree comes from quality mango seed, no doubt. A defective mango seed cannot produce a quality mangoes. But the mango seed cannot survive, cannot yield, cannot produce a better quality tree and mangoes without providing proper soil. The soil, the fertility is a manure of the soil is a must for production of a better quality fruits. Definitely, soil has a role to play, but we cannot say soil produced mango tree. The soil is the conducive environment. Soil gives the influencing factor. It conducively helps, but it cannot directly produce. Similarly, friends, body and senses influences the mind. If the body is sick, mind gets disturbed. Healthy body, healthy mind. They say, because the body influences the mind, but body has no role directly disturb the mind. There is no direct cause and effect. The mind is the boss. Mind controls the body. When the mind is disturbed, body becomes sick automatically. Mind is agitated, body cannot function. You see all the time, when a person is enjoying the food, is hungry, but suddenly he receives a message, a negative message. If somebody close to him met with a fatal accident and spot dead, instantly he becomes disturbed, becomes sorrowful, melancholic, and his tongue changes its taste. He stops eating. The same tasty food becomes sour, bitter. He can't eat anymore because the mind disturbed, mind become sorrowful. Mind is filled with agony, pain, suffering of own close personality, close relative of him passed away suddenly. That disturbs the mind. Therefore, the mind controls the body and senses. Body only influences the mind. So, mind is subtler, body is gross. That is the subtlety. Whereas, the mind compared to the intellect, mind is gross, intellect is subtle. Because wherever the mind goes, intellect can understand, intellect can travel. But mind can travel only to the areas of the known. It cannot reach the unknown. You all the time know that in mathematics, you are asked to derive an answer by formulas. So, intellectual exercise is the capacity of the intellect to penetrate into the unknown. Whereas the mind has a limited capacity, it cannot reach the unknown. You can understand Taj Mahal. The moment you say Taj Mahal, the mind goes because you know it, you experience, you saw it. But if somebody says "2p," toy P, so some kind of word, the mind cannot understand. Why? Because it has not experienced that what you are speaking. For example, so a particular animal name or particular sight or particular sound or particular music, you say, I don't know, because your mind cannot access. Whereas if you say that Tupi is the name of a particular type of fruit which is tastes like banana, looks like guava, the texture is, color is like rose. All this, if you keep giving certain details, your intellect enables the particular description of taking the description of the fruit which you said Tupi, it will be able to visualize and able to understand. That is the capacity of the intellect to access the unknown. So, intellect therefore is more pervasive than the mind. And second quality is the intellect which governs the mind, which polices the mind, which controls the mind. The mind cannot control the intellect. It is the buddhi which controls the manas, mind. So, therefore, the intellect is the higher than the subtler than the mind. So, then comes the self. Self is beyond the intellect. The intellect cannot access, cannot understand the Atman. Atman is supreme. It is subtlest, most subtlest. So, the five senses are strong in themselves. The senses are seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, lure you to indulge in many sense objects, but the senses pull you only as long as you identify with your physical body. The moment your focus of attention or interest on the physical body all the time, you crave for sensual indulgences. The moment you think, you understand, you identify with something higher goal or purpose, a cause beyond the physical body, like a freedom fighters or any goal-oriented people, any sports people or any, they don't focus on their physical body anymore. They are fired with that higher goal or purpose or a cause they are taken up, and they are not drawn to the physical indulgences. So, as much as you identify, that much you are attracted towards the physical senses. If, however, you shift your interest and attention and identification with your mind from the body, you begin to indulge in its emotions. So, like a mother attached to her physical body before marriage, but the moment she gets married and produces children, she gets emotional because she gets attached to the mind and less interested in the body. Therefore, they neglect the physical body after marriage and they are more concerned about the family and children. They are disturbed at the mental level, mind. So, you will find emotional satisfaction is superior to the physical pleasures. Thus, by moving to the level of the mind, the demands and the senses no longer disturb you, victimize you. You cannot be a victimized slave to the body anymore. If you shifted your interest to the mind level, your mind therefore controls your body and the senses. Again, if you shift your attention and identification to the intellect, a person who is fired with the goal of life, a purpose of life, want to become a scientist, a great scientist or a great golfer or sports person. He doesn't care about the body and the family. He is all the time thinking about the how to reach the goal he fixed for. The intellectual idea he carried away, he fixed his interest and attention. Therefore, he is not interested in the body and the mind. He has no his overall control over his body, senses, and the emotions. So, again, if you shift your interest and attention to the intellect, you become intellectual, become a scientist or a lawyer or a doctor or any kind of intellectual, because you have that fixation beyond the body, beyond the mind. Your intellect guides you from then onwards based on your identity, your fixation. Living at that level of the intellect, all your emotional and sensual enjoyments lose their overpowering effect on you. They don't dictate terms. You don't care what is there to eat or not eat. You don't care who is there with you or not. Your intellect keeps guiding your goal. You grow beyond them and to subtler joys. Finally, attuning to the self, or the Atman, the Supreme God, the Atman beyond the intellect. You don't even bother about the intellect as well, because the self-realization, God-realization, enlightenment is your fixation. All the body, mind, intellect drops their significance, their appearance in front of you. You are fired by the self, the spiritual goal, the liberation, the emancipation. So you grow beyond them to subtler joys, finally attuning to the self within. Your entire range of desires pertaining to the body, senses, and the mind, emotions, and the intellect disappears. No longer interested in physical body and their senses, indulgence, mind and their emotions, intellect and their thoughts and ideas. You don't have any attention, because your attention is on the Supreme God, the Atman, the self, to reach the perfection in life, which is the enlightenment and immortality, is only the fire driving your force of interest. Then you become spiritually enlightened. We'll continue with the mantra 43 in the next class. Thank you very much. Hari Om.